4 years ago, you hit it. The wall. The point where something was supposed to give. It didn't. You showed up the next morning, said you were tired, and nobody looked twice. So you filed it under a rough patch and kept moving. And you've been waiting for the real one ever since. It already came. You just outlasted it. That's not the good news you think it is. Go back to the car for a second. Not some memory. Tuesday, you pulled into the driveway and the engine went quiet and you stayed. Keys in your lap, hand still on the wheel. You'd killed the headlights early so nobody inside would clock how long you'd been sitting there. 90 seconds, maybe 4 minutes. You weren't thinking about anything, and that's the part that gets you. You were just sitting in the dark, waiting for enough of something to come back so you could walk in and be normal at people. And underneath it, the thought you've never said out loud. I don't want to go in. Not tonight. Not any night. And there is no version of saying that, where I don't lose everything I built. Then you went in, asked about their day. You were fine. You've done that how many times now? Enough that the driveway is part of the commute. Enough that the people inside stopped asking what took you so long. That's not a bad week. A bad weekend. This has no finish line and a start date you can't place, and you've been filing it under tired, because tired is a word people accept without follow-up questions. Here's what I want you to notice. If I asked you when it started, you'd give me a year. You'd be off by about 4, because the night it actually started, nothing happened. That's exactly why you missed it. So let's do the autopsy. 4 years back. A Tuesday, or close enough. Nothing happened that day. That's the finding. No accident. No diagnosis. No fight in the kitchen at midnight. What happened is you got something. The thing you'd been working at for 2 years. And it finally came through. And you sat with it and waited to feel it. And the feeling didn't show up. So you gave it a minute. Then you decided you were tired. And you went to bed. And you were up at 6. That was it. That was the break. Not a collapse. A flat line. Men who get carried out of the building know the date. You don't. Because nothing about that night looked like an emergency. And every instinct you own is trained to respond only to emergencies. Cause of death. Tolerance. Not catastrophe. Now look at the bill. 4 years of mornings. Not bad ones. Just identical ones. And you couldn't separate them now if I paid you to, which is what time does when none of it needed you to be there. 2 people who used to call and now text once a year, on your birthday, and you leave it sitting for a day, because answering means deciding how much of the truth goes in it. And a range that used to run the whole board and now runs 2 settings. Locked and slightly irritated. You can still do calm. You can still do annoyed. Everything with color in it went somewhere and didn't leave an address. That's what the holding costs. Not one big payment. Small ones. On time. For 4 years. And you have never once opened the statement. Right about here is where you'd normally reach for your phone. That's not a criticism. It's information. The reach shows up exactly when the accounting starts. Anyway, it gets worse than the bill. Because the moment you're waiting on, the one that finally makes the decision for you so you don't have to, isn't running late. It was never on its way. And the reason it isn't coming is the thing about yourself you're proudest of. It's your capacity. The thing you'd list first if someone asked what you're good at. You can take more than the men around you. You always could. You've built most of who you are on top of that one fact. Here's what's actually happening when you take it. You don't get stronger, you borrow. Every time you absorb something that should have stopped you and you stay standing, you're not building strength. You're taking out a loan against a version of you who has to keep standing later, with less. That's endurance debt. And the bill you looked at 4 minutes ago, the mornings, the 2 people, the 2 settings, That's the interest. You've been paying it every month without missing once. You've never touched the principal. A breaking point isn't a place you arrive at. It's a number. And the number is set by what you'll tolerate. So every year you tolerate more, the number goes up. You didn't reach your limit. You moved it. 4 years ago it was in front of you. Tonight it's further out than it was then. And you're the one who put it there. And you did it on purpose, every day, and called it discipline. Which means nothing is coming for you. No crisis big enough to force the decision. No breakdown loud enough that someone has to step in. You can't be rescued from a burning building you keep walking out of on your own. Carl Jung spent his life watching men do this. He said a person will do almost anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing themselves. 10 years under a weight is cheaper than 1 honest hour at a kitchen table. You ran that math a long time ago. You just never wrote it down. And here's the cruelty in it. The men who broke early got something. A leave, a phone call, somebody driving them home. You got a reputation. Every year you stay in good standing. The help moves further away. And the version of you who could still be reached gets smaller. So, what's the alternative here? Break? No. You've been running with the wrong 2 options this whole time. Hold or fall apart. That's a child's menu, and you've been ordering off it for a decade. There's a third thing, and it's quieter than both of them. You put the weight down on purpose, not all of it. Nothing dramatic. You take one thing you've been carrying only because you're capable of carrying it, and you stop, and you don't pick up something else in its place. That isn't collapse. That's the first decision you've made in 4 years. Because this is the part you never checked. You have never once chosen what you carry. You took whatever got handed to you and proved you could hold it. And everyone called that character. Strength you didn't choose isn't strength. It's a reflex with good PR. Men who get out of this don't do it by feel. They put it in writing, and they work it in an order. And from the outside, it looks like almost nothing. Somebody asks how you're doing, and you don't answer in half a second. You take the 3 seconds. Sometimes, you still say fine. But you said it because you decided to, not because your mouth did it without you. You pull into the driveway, and the engine goes quiet, and you get out of the car. That's it. That's what the other side actually looks like. Nobody claps. Then something strange starts. The color comes back, and it doesn't come back in the order you'd want. What shows up first usually isn't happiness. It's anger, or something that feels a lot like grief arriving 4 years late, about a Tuesday you never told anyone about. Let it. That's the account correcting itself. A man who can feel one thing again can eventually feel the rest. It doesn't come back in settings you get to pick. But none of that starts on its own. It starts with one move, and it's smaller and harder than you're expecting. Here's the move. Default on one thing. This week, not the biggest one. Pick something you're carrying purely because you're the man who can carry it. The account nobody else wants. The relative everything roots through. The thing you said yes to in a meeting 11 months ago and have been quietly absorbing ever since. 1. Put it down, and don't hand yourself a replacement. That's where men fail this. They set one weight down and pick up another by Friday, because an empty hand feels like the flat line. It isn't. It's the first thing you've held on purpose in 4 years. Then the harder half. Tell one person you did it, out loud, to a face. Debt you keep off the books keeps charging you. The only reason yours got this big is that nobody ever saw the statement. There are other lines on that statement. I go through them here, one at a time. If you want the order it goes in, it's linked below. Read it before you pick the thing you're putting down. 4 years ago, something in you ended, and you weren't there for it. You were at work the next morning, telling people you were tired. So the break isn't the thing you're still waiting on. It came. It's done. It happened without you. What's still outstanding is you showing up for it. Tonight the engine goes quiet. Get out of the car.